if you needed that.
No, I do. You know how I am. You know,
Yeah,
autistic. No, I don't actually know. But you know how I am with routines. It it gives me clarity and purpose.
it gives you ability to do the most menial of tasks. Otherwise, it's damn near impossible.
Yeah, but I never fail to do said tasks. Some people like no, I don't not actually like you. I don't know. I guess some people when they don't give themselves a system, they don't get anything done. And like, how look
Yeah,
at you. You need
well,
a system to get basic shit done. It's just like, are you doing those things? No. Oh, okay then.
well,
I'm not.
I
I'm
don't
actually
remember
not talking
struggling
about you. I don't think I
to
am anyway. I
record,
don't think.
at the very least.
What?
I don't recall struggling to press record when I was the recorder dude.
That's fair. Is it weird that I very clearly have something, you know, and I don't think a lot of people do, but so many people do. Like it's on the some kind of thing on the autism spectrum, right? And I so deeply do not care.
Uh, I profoundly wish you did, because then you would get treatment and have to take
Treatment.
pills
Yeah,
sometimes.
I wouldn't know
Like,
because I'm not even close to someone who would need to like take medication for the way that I
I think
naturally behave.
anyone like with the slightest thing that isn't normal, whatever that means, ends up having to take pills for shit. That just seems to be life. It's just you take like 20 separate different pills just to get through the day.
Yeah, it's like ADHD medication, which I know like
Yeah.
ADHD is like extremely real, but I'm also just like, just focus, bro. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm not good at focusing, but that's because I basically I have a very simple system for that. I let myself get distracted, and it means that I don't just stare at the one thing like just for hours on end, not getting anything done because I can't focus on it. I kind of just let myself do other shit while that thing stays in front of me, and it just eventually gets done. Um, I don't find distractions to be um like a hindrance, basically. Weirdly enough, um, maybe not helpful either, but they definitely don't hold me back. Like just because my Xbox is there does not stop me from getting shit done. You know, even though it's right there and it's on, and I'm probably playing something, but it's like I kind of need that. You know, unlike right now, this is the time where I am the most singular of the week. Actually,
And we've sat down to record the Barrel Vision
well, I
podcast.
know that you are. Well, I don't know if you're like focusing on it, but I know that you are technically playing Disco Elysium right now.
I've got the menu up, which I
Well,
like looking at. It's very artistically
yeah, and that's
pleasant.
the thing because obviously we're in icon form today, and that means I can't tell if you're looking at me or not. Not that you can because I'm not there, but I can't. I don't know where you're looking. You could easily be looking
I'm
at your
looking
screen.
outside the window.
All right,
That's where I normally am
that's fine.
looking,
That's fine. So am I.
pondering the horizon
Pondering.
on a miserable
Whoa,
British day.
that was actually kind of clever.
Oh,
That's not where we're starting. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Barrel Vision podcast. Your one stop, your one stop. What's the phrase? Your for all things deep rock. Um, and well, that's not even true. Actually, we need to somehow rebrand to make it clear that it's not because it's not like we cover Survivor, but we cover everything that we're actually not deep rock locked technically. I don't know if we made it. We never put it in
all
writing, but we
things
are. Yeah,
Ghost Ship
it,
Games, not Ghost Ship Publishing, just specifically Ghost Ship
exactly.
Games.
But how do we
Game.
How do we keep that shortened in like our branding? We can't because there's no way to like keep
I
that
don't think
concise.
shortened is in our branding. I don't think that they're the same thing.
Okay, obviously it will only become a problem when it comes to the fateful day where they make something that isn't deep rock, which I mean could happen. I know I don't even
Sooner,
necessarily don't. It's not that I
later
don't want it to
is
happen
fine.
either. You know.
I mean, on the original schedule, wouldn't it be coming out like next month originally?
Oh yeah, I guess we could. Well, that would be more appropriate to talk about after the broadcast in a way, because that's the point. We'll get to it, but obviously, no, we'll get to it. Actually, I don't like jumping ahead. I don't want to jump. The thing, and also we're not jumping ahead very far because what else is there to talk about? Werewolf mask.
Very bait. There it is. That's my opinion.
So I guess we are allowed to talk about furries when we're kind of prompted to. Not that they were mentioned. I think I did actually. I think I jokingly questioned to myself in the news video. It's like, is this furry bait? And yeah. Have you actually? I guess you have seen it technically. I wanted to show it to you pretty much in full, but you've kind of seen it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a fair shake at a werewolf mask, right? It's pretty infallible, I'd say. I'll give them that.
I think within its art style, they never could have made like an actually scary looking werewolf mask, if you know what I mean. Like you can't really get any more jagged. So I think they went with I don't know. I guess it literally like a werewolf mask, like that you would get in real life. That is like silly, but also supposed to scare children.
The thing is, it's almost technically not, because there's like no way to see out of it. Which, by the way, I like, which because it implies, by the way, what I think should be done. Like, I know it's extremely trivial, and our sort of our ramblings about like holiday cosmetics always are, but there is something to be said, I think, about the concept of the holographic technology in the Deep Rock universe, right? Because our gripe with a lot of the holiday cosmetics is that they're always falling into the trap of like making them as if they were physically made, the DIY thing, which is like an understandable approach because they are literally costumes, or just random hats.
At the cost of it actually looking good.
Yeah,
like I like the devil mask. If it was a full face mask, that would be an instant like best cosmetic in the game.
well,
like,
exactly, and we've had a couple. Like I mean, remember 2 years ago, not last year, the year before, we got that was probably the best Halloween because we got the hooded horror and the mission control mask. Obviously, both of those are definitely physical masks, especially the mission control one. I'm pretty sure those are the dwarf's eyes. I think. I'm not sure. I don't know if it replaces your eyes or not. The point is, we do know that in the Deep Rock universe, there is this like holographic technology that they use for this kind of thing, like the ghost ship helmet. And what I'm saying is that should just be used as a very loose excuse, because frankly, you don't need the excuse, right? But I'm just providing one if they feel like they need it. It's a very loose excuse to basically just like do actually what you want with those helmets. To have like the costumes, all of them could be like just holograms, and I would personally take it the wolf being that, because there's no way the dwarf can see out of it. You can't like there's no hole in the mouth, and the eyes are like replaced as well. So I don't know where they're seeing from in that mask.
I just find it curious that the first like 100% convincing mask to wear, like the fact that there's a dwarf underneath it becomes a bit questionable. Is a
furry
wolf
mask
thing. Yeah,
Don't,
I just find that
okay, but it's not, is it?
interesting.
Because furry costumes, they have quite a specific style, right? They do, they do. And this isn't like a furry werewolf.
There's like a lot of skin, right? Like around the mouth, like I think from what I recall, like it wasn't particularly hairy in the front facial area.
No, it's got like it's actually that's quite a typical werewolf thing actually, where the face is actually tends to be quite like that, and it's got like a mane more so. It's actually pretty typical. It's a very like it's a very traditional werewolf, which I think is deliberate.
Definitely get more furry.
Oh yeah, you could get far more furry. If anything, the only thing that's making it more furry than it would be otherwise is just the Deep Rock art style. Apart from that, the design is pretty much a straightforward classic werewolf. It's just slightly more cartoonish than it would be otherwise because of the art style. That's probably all it is. But you find it curious that it's the first one that's like that.
They one of the art designers went out of their way to make it a very convincing. And like, you know, if you put it on a dwarf with just all armor, it's like, you know, is that even a dwarf, or is that a wolf with armor on? And my point is I think the ratio of furry and like artists is pretty high. and so there's probably at least one furry working for.
Yeah, and okay, and
in
by
their
the
art.
way, we're not actually. I probably shouldn't even add a caveat. I feel like adding a caveat where it's like, and that's okay, probably comes across as a bit unnecessary, really.
The thing is also the ratio of furries and the deep rock community is also quite high. And I think we know for a fact that there are some furries probably watching us right now, which is why I'm not going to say either that what's the word? Like, I don't
Disapprove?
think it's good or bad. I don't give a shit about what you do. It's probably the best way of putting it.
No.
I'm just saying, I think that the topic of it being a furry mask came up in office, and they probably were like, "It's fine, who cares?"
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of furries in the community.
Yeah.
So, if
Well,
anything, it would help.
I guess given that we got a werewolf mask, though, I guess we should just thank the gods that we didn't actually get a full costume.
Yeah.
Well,
Although
okay,
that would have
so
been like up there, right?
were we actually
I know that.
expecting that? Because we talked, I think we talked on the last episode about like the holiday costumes and how it seemed like they were doing one per year. But to be fair, those probably are a little bit. They definitely are more effort, right? A full
Yeah, and they
costume.
probably didn't want to put in the effort this time around.
Yeah,
They
that that
do
that that isn't trivial. I do see the masks a little bit trivial. We know they take like roughly 2 days to make, so that's like fine. I think a costume is actually genuine work, especially for the art department, who are definitely busy right now on Brocore, like for sure, the entire art department, as they should be.
everything.
Yeah, which is a good thing, by the way, because we know that comes down to a lot of things. Like, I mean, I told you before we started that the episode wouldn't be about this. It wouldn't be about the differences between Deep Rock and Rogue Core. But one of the few things we know is how much they're fleshing out, like, the Core Spawn family, for example. And we also know, in terms of like where the game is at currently, that it's not in like it's not in a state where it looks like how it's going to look. If you know what I mean. I think we kind of know that. And I think there's going to be, not that the game is going to necessarily feel or look that different from Deep Rock, but there's still going to be a lot of new elements, like basically added to it, that could be in Deep Rock, like locations and enemies, for example. I feel like people are going to be surprised at how much liberty they're taking to not have like the same biomes or enemies in Deep enemies, not so much, but I think biomes are going to be a very different situation. I think most of the environments in Rogue Core are going to be completely new, and I think that's pretty damn
I think
exciting.
we're looking at a genuine chance that Glyphids won't be in Brocore.
It's difficult. The Glyphids
Like,
one is honestly, I think Glyphids is the biggest coin toss as to whether or not that species will transfer. I think it's almost more likely for the rest of them to carry over. You know, there's like a very strong,
yeah,
there's a very strong like coin toss type of chance that they replace the Glyphids as the baseline enemy species with the core spawn, and
yeah.
that would be
They'll do
perfectly
like
fine.
creepier, darker versions of all the other things, like
Yeah.
Mactera.
Oh, you'd probably get like dreadnoughts in certain contexts though. Maybe things like that for like special
Maybe a
moments.
dreadnought boss that spawns Glyphids, and that's kind of like essentially a reference, if you know what I mean, like to the first game more than it is like, you know.
Yeah.
But like I feel like a very good way of separating the identity of the two games would be a complete lack of Glyphids in Rogue Core.
It actually
Considering
would
they're
be.
iconic for Deep Rock generally.
Yeah, I think the concept of giving Rogue Core its own Glyphids from the ground up is genuine. That would actually be a good idea. And the truth is, that is kind of what they're doing. Even if Glyphids are in the game, I feel like, based on impressions and things that have been said, it definitely seems like the core spawn, even if the Glyphids were in the game, the core spawn would still be the most frequently fought enemy species. Obviously, there'd be a variety of them.
Really weird, then, though, doesn't it? Right? That like you can't have more core spawn than Glyphid grunts because Glyphid grunts are literally fucking everywhere, and there are tons of them.
I think there's going to be a lower tier. I think that's why I think there's going to be. I think the core spawn that we fight in the game at the moment aren't the grunts, potentially.
Maybe, yeah.
They're actually like
or I
one
kind
step
of the
up.
way I see it is that there's not like I guess this is probably because I've still got a pretty like very strong tie to I think it's Gunfire Reborn, wasn't it? Which is ironic we bring up furries in that game because that's definitely a lot of that.
That's a
But
furry game almost, like arguably.
yeah, the bunny character was very very, but still good game. But that really didn't have a lot of enemies, right? I mean, it had probably like maybe like a maximum of 20 enemies in any given situation, like a fight. And that's kind of how I'm looking at like Rotor,
You
which
think it
might
might
not be
be
accurate. I'm
no, no.
hoping
So you're
because they
thinking
did
of it.
mention,
Sorry, you're thinking a bit less of a horde shooter than what Deep Rook is. So not
yeah, where
yeah.
there isn't just going to be like a ton of uh, core spawns, but more like each core spawn has like the strength of like 3 or 4 grunts, and so you kind of deal with them. But if they're using the same weapons, then they might want to rely on the same kind of gimmicks. I'm not sure, but um, I don't know. I think stronger enemies and stronger dwarves kind of makes it make sense in my head. That would be another change,
I
kind
think they
of
are
going into it.
definitely I think they're definitely going down the route of a bit more intelligence across the board as far as combat goes from both perspectives. From perspective of the players probably needing to up our game a bit, and also from the perspective of the enemies. But obviously they go hand in hand, like obviously. But um I definitely think we're gonna have to be more intelligent. At least I definitely hope so. I mean, it definitely comes across that way. I mean, there's almost an element of the way that the core spawn are implemented in Deep Rock at the moment that they kind of outrun the dwarves almost in terms of what they're even capable of. You know,
Yeah,
the dwarves' physical capabilities are kind of outmatched, like literally in terms of movement. Like except scout, I guess, but even then, depending on where you are, they can still like jump at you. Like the dwarves are essentially outmatched by the core spawn, like literally.
what a quick, like agile, and like they can short distance, like very jump. They're quite tanky as well. Really, they're not the considering their speed. Normally, you sacrifice a lot of health, but they're like still more than a grunt, right?
Yeah,
Health
it's why
wise.
you definitely need more like, or definitely they're more like I think they're probably around the same, if not a bit more than guards health wise, although their armor isn't quite the same. But it's why I would be thinking of like
Damage.
for roguecore, but why you would need more traditional sort of roguelite abilities. You know, roguelites you always get like plenty of like crowd control, like attacks. Like I can imagine the dwarves actually having like straight up like almost like ground pound abilities and things like that, where it's just much more like getting in on the action because you need to like use these basically powers that you gain from upgrades to keep the enemies in check because they're just that fast and maneuverable. So
I really like the idea that like that because that enemy like people are complaining about how strong they are in Deep Rock Galactic, right? Like that is they're like those fuckers are strong, and I really like the idea that those are the weakest guys they have to deal with
um
in Rotor.
I
I think
do as
that's such
well. I think
a
there
good
will.
idea.
I think there will be. Depending on how they approach the core spawn species, there will be one step below, like a swarmer type at least. I suppose, like a baby.
Maybe, but they're
But
not inherently like easier because then there'd be a lot
well, no,
more of
because I
them,
mean, think
right?
about it. Swarmers aren't inherently easier than grunts. Obviously, one swarmer is right, but that's not the how the game sort of throws them at you. You know, you always get so many swarmers, and they are more. Swarmers are almost like
Also,
a group of swarmers is almost the enemy rather than a single
just because
swarmer.
I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking a swarmer type of that species would be like I think the best image of this would be like in The Thing, but I'm not quite sure because I've not watched the
Oh
movie.
God,
But
you
basically,
actually
just
thinking
like
of
their
the
head and like
yeah.
legs coming straight out of it, like 4 little legs scampering around, like kind of thing, and there'd just be a ton of like little like deformed skulls, like with legs, and that's the swarmer type.
That's horrible, but genuinely good idea. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I really can't imagine, and this definitely leans into what we're going to be talking about anyway. But I find it really hard to imagine like what direction they could go with like what higher tier core spawn would be. Obviously, they could go the direction of covering every type of ground. Like they could have flyers even, and like because my brain immediately though goes to like just giant like hulked out core spawn for some reason. I don't know why, but that's what I think
Because I
of.
think
Like a
it's
bit like the
interesting.
Goliath. You know the Goliaths. Remember the Goliaths from Borderlands? Like their little skull heads.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mentioned something like that. I mentioned something.
Yeah, but
Um,
like we know a lot about how they were made, which is actually quite nice because we could like because I think the thing was specifically mentioned, or at least some other horror movies were on the.
I mean, body horror was mentioned, and that
Yeah,
there's
like
no way
body
that
horror.
doesn't include the thing.
Yeah. And so, like, if you were to think that for the rest of at least the Courseborn family, they're using the same kind of horror stuff, then you really could kind of picture those versions of stuff. Like, yeah, the tankier ones are like, I don't know, just like bulbousing, like the
Bulbousing.
muscles are just protruding out. That it barely makes any sense, like anatomically, like, but
Well
it
done
gives it
on
a
the
lot.
use of that word. I could tell you were about to say something like anatomic. Well, you were going to try and say something, but you didn't know what it was at first. But then you're like, oh, I actually do know the word.
Yeah, that's most words that come out of my mouth, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, I honestly, I that is my hope, which I think is what gets back to what we hope to hear. I
Yeah.
hope we hear that the base mobs are a lot creepier in
Oh, I
concept.
mean, it was kind of said a while ago at this point, I suppose, sort of around the announcement, actually. Um, but I did actually no, it wasn't the announcement. I think it was actually because I've rewatched something recently, and I think it might have actually been the previous On the Horizon, but all the stuff before they got to season 5. Because I wanted to sort of go over anything they said about roll call, and I think I do remember Mikkel directly responding to a question that was like, actually was Mikkel and Mike at the same time, and I think the question that was asked was like, is Rokor essentially like a darker version of DRG? And they were like, yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
that kind
it's
of
exactly what
that's very
I mean,
obviously an
literally,
extremely
and
simple answer, but it definitely that speaks to. I think that does speak to us, right? So many of the problems that we have with Deep Rock artistically, at least, come down to sort of some of the sillier aspects, I suppose. And I don't actually have a problem with the way Deep Rock is inherently with those kind of things, but at the same time, it still tickles my brain, thinking of a sort of darker, just more grim, basically version of that.
grimdark
Grimdark,
DRG.
yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
but yeah, separating it from grimdark, the idea that I think people classify as cringe. Um,
Well, yeah, it would
it
still be
does.
dwarven though. Like you'll get that, you get the dwarven
Yeah,
camaraderie, but
yeah.
it wouldn't be
I'm
entirely
not sure if
serious.
it will translate into the dwarves will be taken more seriously, as in they won't get silly cosmetics, or however cosmetics are going to work. But I think
Hopefully,
at
well.
least, like, I think in the cave, it's going to feel darker and things are going to be creepier. And I hope the sound effects really fuck around with you like that more, like stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean,
I,
like, there's stuff that there's obviously we know far less than we do, and honestly, even the stuff that we know is all subject to change, especially what I'm about to cite, because this is once again from quite a while ago. But as far as we know, as long as this doesn't change, we know more than you might expect about like the actual flow of like runs in row core. Like I remember them talking about how you basically start a run outside the grey out zone. The grey out zone is actually like a zone of Hoxies that is like below this certain basically mantle, and every run starts at like basically in front of this wall, like actually,
we,
and you have to break through,
I
which
would
is always the first
say,
stage of a run, I think.
if Glyphids are in the game and a Glyphid boss is in the game, it's in that area.
Yeah, stage one, the
So
first stage, and then it
I wouldn't
immediately
blame.
switches up.
Yeah, I think once you go into the depths, I feel like the complete, like, because I feel like a deep rock player going into this game will like load into that area and it will be like, I don't know, fucking salt pits or something,
Yeah,
right? It's something
I
very
think it would be. Yeah,
recognizable.
I think it'd be like a normal deep rock cave, except at the
Yeah,
end of it, there is
and it's
literally
like
a wall.
if
There's
it's
literally.
then like everything's like normal, but maybe like because I don't know how it works, but like as you go through the level or levels, getting through the segment, like something slowly starts changing, right? Like a new enemy will appear every so often. It's like, oh, that's a bit odd. Like core stone will start sticking out of things, and then I just hope you go through the next level and it's just a completely different atmosphere. Like you have just walked into somewhere where dwarves are not welcome. Like the thought that the Hoxies that we're used to is actually peaceful and quite pleasant
In
compared to what's down
comparison,
there.
oh my
Like
god.
like Hoxies is actually not too bad considering the stuff that that you're about to plunge into, like the depths. If they can convey that, like gameplay wise and atmosphere wise, holy shit, will that go hard? Like,
Yeah, I mean that's definitely what you want out of a roguelite. It's kind of, I would say it is definitely a trope and sort of a necessary trope of those is to punctuate the, not necessarily to have a turning point. You don't need a turning point because you usually have multiple, just multiple like sharp atmosphere changes almost. Honestly, Hades kind of has it does it in reverse almost, where it's kind of like shitty right until the end, and it's like, whoa, look, I'm outside. But you kind of want the inverse of that, as in you want it to happen early on, and you want basically. I think that would be a good way to handle it because it does sound a little bit like what I just described. That it could easily, obviously, with us not, we aren't really assuming anything here, but we are taking like a guess that could easily fall flat. But the first stage taking place outside the actual grey out zone could easily mean it is much more familiar, and then you just immediately get hit with like just the fucking underworld basically of Hoxie's as soon as you go through.
also, like you would kind of then like because of the reclaimers, maybe the first part really is kind of easy, right? Like the first bit, so you're just kind of building up your equipment. It's not too hard. So then it is ready to like after you beat like the I don't know Glyphid Queen or whatever. If they really want to play that card, which I wouldn't blame them, but if they
Oh
did,
my
then
god, that would be such a shitty. That would be such a shitty and also awesome way to do a Glyphid Queen. Is to actually have the first time we fight one, like just for the entire community. The first time we fight Glyphid Queen is actually the first time you play Rotor, and it's just right at the start, and it's like surprisingly easy or something. That would be kind of
yeah,
shitty, but also really
because
cool.
ultimately, yeah, like I I don't know. It really depends on how much
I mean, how
like
much
how
they want to
important
sell.
Rotor is. Because
Yeah.
if Rocourt is the continuation of Deep Rock, not the Deep Rock has ended, but still Rocourt is set after, or like like with a more elite team, so then more elite threats, that pun intended. Uh, like it, it would really put it into frame. The thing that the dwarfs would never even see in the normal game, they deal with like almost immediately, and it's hardly the biggest problem
Oh
they
yeah. Well, I
have
guess
in
like
their
the
mission.
it's the Reclaimer specifically dealing with it
Yeah.
quickly, I suppose. That's kind of, yeah. That makes a lot of sense, and that's I think we do kind of need to try and transition actually. But I mean, the problem with this is we're kind of getting into actually a fairly excited like roll call discussion, and yet the point of this episode was to almost do not the opposite, but like a more hypothetical version of that, which is what we want them to show us specifically. But I think there's a reason why it's worth talking about that on upcoming on the Horizon stream, and we can move into that now. I don't know if we got more road
Well,
call nonsense to spew.
I think we definitely do because it's basically the only thing we can get excited talking about because everything else is so far in the future. There's not much fucking point, to be honest with you.
But well,
But
that's the
yeah,
point though, because
Rockport and this.
literally seeing Roadcore isn't that far in the future now. That's kind of the point.
Oh,
Seeing something from it.
yeah, but
Um,
we are probably gonna get in an ideal world, well, at least screenshots, right? At least screenshots of Roadcore, but ideally a gameplay reveal
yeah.
would
So
be
that's
very
okay.
nice.
So let's actually get into it. And so we know
Caveat, but
now.
they'll be like, this is very vulnerable to change. A lot of it probably will. Don't even bother paying attention to the upgrades. They probably won't be there on launch. Stuff like that. But at
Yeah.
least being able to see that the game that we've only heard about exists and you can play it,
Mm.
which I know like some people already have like SNES and so on and so forth. But
Well,
like still
that's definitely
seeing
important to
that.
mention. So we know now. So we're not going to talk about the spill, which was the coffee stain broadcast. I thought that there would be reason to. I thought that before that broadcast actually happened. By the way, not today. I knew that we weren't going to talk about it today. The only thing of value that was mentioned, and I say that in like the sense of upcoming deep rock and roadcore stuff, right? I don't mean like there's nothing of value there. It seemed like a very cool thing for like indie developers, but the only thing of value there for us was really Soren mentioning, because we kind of, I certainly did, assumed that the spill was actually going to be, even if it didn't have much to show or even anything, I still thought it would be in place of an On the Horizon because it was essentially around the same time as the previous one, you know. But luckily, Soren was there and basically just said that there will be an On the Horizon broadcast next month, so that's November. and that there will be a pretty significant road core focus, and that is essentially what we're going to be talking about now.
Yeah, it's not actually like as far as Steam posts are concerned, it's not confirmed, is it?
No,
I
no,
mean, I know
it's literally just in Soren's words, and it's been sort of reiterated by like Anders talking about it. People asking him like, "Oh, what are you going to show?" It's like, I can't. I'm not that guy. Stop. But they just know that he's going to respond. They just know
Yeah.
But yeah, we know we're going to get one in November. And we know that Road Core will be featured, certainly more than Deep Rock will be. Which is obviously going to be the opposite to the last one. So yeah, this is going to come down to a bit of what we want to see from that, and kind of also for me, I do want to talk about a little bit. We can talk to some Road Core stuff first, but I do want to talk about kind of basically the vibes I want to get from the broadcast. But yeah, what they would actually show. I mean, from Road Core specifically, we don't really talk about publishing stuff. It would be at least half though, I should say, for people. It's going to be at least a 50-50 split because it is the broadcasts are about Ghost Ship Publishing, which still has Deep Rock and Road Core under that umbrella, but you know. So basically, probably about half the stream will be irrelevant to us. But yeah, so
yeah, I assume this is very tangential. I assume that Road Core is being published by Ghost Ship Games, unlike the original.
Yeah, exactly.
They are publishing.
Well, yeah, I guess we're kind of lucky that they don't take the fact that On Horizon is a Ghost Ship Publishing too literally, because if they did, then Deep Rock technically wouldn't apply. But Road Core is published by them, not Coffee Stain. It's self-published, which is actually really cool. Yeah, man.
But yeah, we'll still probably hear. There's probably going to be a Survivor update, I assume, scheduled.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That they're going to be. I imagine probably a Christmas update, realistically. Like, what's the other one? Spell Rogue's probably going to get a mention. Poor fucking Spell Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, what's actually I didn't look into it, but they
doing right.
I as far as I know, they're all doing fine. They're all doing good.
Yeah.
Dark Swarm, they actually did show some gameplay of that at on the spill, which was really I should have paid attention to, because that was the one that was like one that was announced a while ago. That was one that they knew would be far off. But yeah, Dark Swarm I think has some kind of tangentiality. Depending on our position, depending on where we're at. Do you agree? Like, depending where it's at, like when it comes out, it's probably the kind of thing we would like possibly even try and like stream, depending on where our hardware is at. Dark Swarm, and that's kind of cool. I definitely think, because Dark Swarm has a pretty definitive also like 4-class split, so I can definitely see a like crossover DLC happening
when it was like originally shown, it was like an isometric DRG, really. Like that was the.
It's an isometric. Well, it's also set on like it's set on a spaceship though, I think, or at least in like buildings rather than natural environments. But yeah, that's kind of cool. But obviously, we want to talk about Road Core, and we know it will be featured in the stream.
Dino Lord.
Dino Lords is kind of cool, actually.
Dino Lords, I think, Spell Rogue can fuck off as far as I'm concerned.
And that's harsh, but that's just opinion. We're just not interested in that game. I really doubt
I'll like it, but I think it has probably going to end up having like the same merit as Deep Rock as a gameplay system, or like gaming play. Like, not actually, I don't care about it anywhere near as much, but it'll probably play quite the same. But then Dino Lords, I mean, I fuck with Dino Lords pretty damn hard.
I fuck with you heavy, Dino Lords.
Yeah. I mean, what is it like fucking Age of Mythology and all that? Like,
is it that
with
kind
dinosaurs?
I don't know how much of it is that kind of strategy game. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it's a real time strategy game, and I know that it has like hero mechanics, like, but that are like where there will be units that you can control manually. So it almost goes into like an isometric beat 'em up gameplay when you use these units, but it's still a real time strategy on top of that.
Which honestly, I think is if anything, cool. Dino Lords has a slight concern that like it might be bad on launch. Like that, I think it sounds like they might be promising a lot. And the only reason why I wouldn't like, because if this was a completely its own like game that was completely separate to like Ghost Ship, I probably wouldn't have much hopes on it. But just knowing that Ghost Ship and the quality control that they tend to apply to basically everything is going to be involved, probably don't have to worry.
Yeah, it's also
There is a lot.
well, I've seen stuff from it. Like even like at the last on the horizon, it looked pretty good, and they've obviously showed even more during the spill, and it looked pretty up to scratch. And it's only scheduled for early access, by the way, for Q2 of next year. So within
Yeah, so there might not be
the
much
first
to
half.
show really. That's the only thing
Well,
with
that's what I mean.
Dino.
It's just how good it looks already, and then they've got plenty of time still. Also, by the way, I mean, obviously you guys can't see it, but I think that logo has got major riz.
Yeah, like
I like
yeah,
that. It's got a classic sort of I guess it's like a mix between classic like
style
sort of 90s
Dino.
cartoons vibes and also like 90s like metal vibes as well at the same time.
Yeah,
It's like a very nice logo. I like that kind of thing. So yeah, Dino Lords is actually one we're also keeping an eye on. Like obviously the plan is for us to have not inherently have transition, but certainly to have usable PCs before Rockall comes out. That is the
which
general
is what I
plan.
like now. I just realised. I mean, I don't know. I would never be comfortable saying
Whoa!
it, but I finally have a
Update.
job. I actually have money.
Yeah, which I guess is an interesting thing to mention because it's not like either of us have explicitly said, "Oh, look at Tyler, jobless bum, jobless bum,"
Yeah,
like
but I
once.
was, but now I'm not, so I can say it.
Yeah, yeah, I am though.
Yeah, no, I can get a nice PC
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
not feel really guilty about it because I earned the money. Let's go. Do the
Yeah,
little dance.
I will. I feel
Yeah,
guilty about every purchase, so it's fine. But
it's
yeah,
fine. You government
I
money.
mean,
Whatever.
Dino will come out before roll call, so I guess well, the plan is basically to do it as soon as possible. Next year, I suppose. I'm not too much thinking about getting a PC this year, but definitely because we want to be able to do that kind of thing as well. I think that will make us branching out into and not covering on a granular news level, certainly, I'd imagine, but it still definitely opens doors to branch out and be a bit more holistic with Ghost Ship's publishing stuff if we have like the means to just immediately play stuff on like launch, right? Like Dino Lords absolutely is going to get some kind of coverage if we have the means to play it. Like that would be streams at
Yeah,
least, you know.
we'll cover it either
Um,
way, and if we like it, then that shit might be on the break.
well, yeah,
Realistically.
exactly. I mean, we certainly made a decision a while ago to certainly cut out the potential for non-deep rocks, not non-deep rock, non-ghost ship stuff. It's like in general because RoboQuest, I could be a RoboQuest YouTuber, right? Um, they put out updates frequent enough, and there are like just news frequent enough for me to definitely make some kind of make something off of that. But I personally, it didn't quite add up in a way. But anything Ghost Ship can potentially find its way in potentially into our field of view, because it kind of inherently is just by us being so focused on Ghost Ship games. Ghost Ship publishing will
Yeah.
always be in the periphery, at least. Like it's always surrounding it. But anyway, Rocore. Do you think? I guess we could get a big one out of the way. Do you think there'll be a trailer? I don't think there can be a trailer. If you know what I mean.
No,
It'd be
we're
kind
not
of
going to get a
weird.
trailer until they're releasing it, right? You don't release a trailer for a closed alpha, right? You don't
No,
do that.
you don't tend to
No
release
one
them
can get
pre-closed
it.
alpha at all, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's just more of these things are more of a development update anyway. They are
And
definitely
the thing is,
marketing, but you don't get that kind of thing during these. Like, think about it. They could have easily prepared a season 5 trailer for the last one, but why would they do that when instead they could just go through everything that was in season 5 screenshots, And that worked
yeah.
out so well for them.
And I think, I guess, because I mentioned earlier what kind of the bare minimum I was hoping for is best case scenario, long term, they announce that you can apply for early alpha on the stream. That is as far along as the game can possibly really realistically be, and that's like ahead of schedule by a lot, isn't it?
That
But
would
if
be that would be like a pretty like tight like sting almost like an ending sting to the stream. It's just like, oh, by the way, you can apply for the pre-alpha or something. That would be crazy. Quite unlikely though.
it's still like I think when you apply for it, it doesn't mean it's coming out instantly. It's probably like a
No.
couple months still, but like I think if they can announce and like people can start applying for the alpha, that is a big step. That is a nice solid step. A step that's almost too soon for us, but still, very very important step. And it's
I
fun.
think I have actually talked about this with my brother. Actually, um, where no, I think I mentioned. Did I mention it when because obviously, out of my entire family, he's the only person who really understands um that it's actually kind of cool that we got 1,000 subscribers. Um, like, oh, that means
Yeah.
you can earn. And that's partially because, first of all, he's our generation. Obviously, he's older than me, but he's our generation, and he also does actually have he has a friend who does have a career out of YouTube. He's like a theme park vlogger, um, and he does earn a living off this. So he was like, "Oh, that's actually kind of cool that you're earning money at all from this." And I think I did mention about I mentioned of he knows what Deep Rock is, and I mentioned they've got like an upcoming game, and like there is, because of our position, there's technically a chance we would get like pre-alpha invites. Obviously, it could be open, we don't know, but with limited space, it could be open with limited spaces. But I mentioned that, and I think he did say that about using his PC. I don't actually remember if we had that long of a discussion about it, but that's just
As
if it's
far as
like
you're aware, you heard him say that. Whether or not he said it is up to the wind. But you heard him give you his consent to
well,
use his
yeah.
PC.
I mean, you've mentioned using your brother's PC as well. You mentioned,
Yeah, but he's now fucked off to like
oh,
I don't know,
what a
a
cunt!
uni somewhere else. So that's probably not gonna happen. But no, I'm fine. I've got like $1.50 now anyway. So
Wow, look at you.
um, yeah.
Well, yeah, so do I, but I just don't like change.
But
Well, it really just comes. Honestly, it comes down to my monitor or slash my TV. As in what all I really want to what would make it really seamless for me is if I can have my Xbox and my PC use the same screen. I know I'll have to upgrade, right? I can't use this TV for a PC. I know that, but I don't want to have two screens personally. And I know that's stupid because two screens would be far better, but my
he is
laptop is
Harry.
still probably gonna be
He's
my laptop will still be my personal computer, I imagine, and a PC will
yeah.
be a gaming PC. So
Honestly, for you, it makes sense. But I had it previously, like back when I was doing the drawing streams. It was my TV, which I have like on the other side of my bed. Basically, I'm living the fucking dream, and by the dream, I mean I'm a fat lazy bum. But I could just lay in bed, play Xbox, or switch over to the PC. But I realized PC really doesn't work for that. You do have to be able to like lean in and like be able to see pixels, which my TV couldn't fucking do. It's horrendous. So
horrendous. I love that. I love that word you just made up.
I meant to say horrendous, but
You
yeah,
mixed horrendous and heinous, and you got horrendous. I like it.
horrendous. It sounds like a Greek god. Um,
Horrendous.
but
Yeah.
yeah, probably ends up having to get like all of it. Because I did have a keyboard, but my brother took that to where he's gone off to uni as well. So I don't have that anymore. Point
I
is,
mean, look, it's worth it because
looking
it will.
forward,
It's not just. Well, I mean, you've got to think about it because obviously upgrading two PCs, it's not a one note change, right? Obviously, there's so many things that will work for. First of all, not that the technological demands are that high, right? But just the mere accessibility, modded Terraria, but also just all sort of, I guess, future stuff you can sort of keep a PC up to date with. I do think about like even like Elder Scrolls and things like that. I mean, certainly me modding Halo Master Chief Collection, whatever. But the point is, right? The idea of actually getting PCs, aside from like when I'm pretty sure in like 2019, our entire friend group was like, we're gonna get PCs by the end of the year, yeah, yeah. Sign it off.
I want it to be known that you are the main reason why that didn't occur. All right, like me and James did get a PC. All right, my one was shitty, his was not. But we did get a PC, and then Tom didn't because you didn't, and you were not getting one. So
Anyway,
shout
no, but what I'm just saying, the idea of getting a PC again was literally raised by
just for roll
Rocore.
call.
Yeah,
I'd written it off. I'm like, oh well, I don't really care that much. But like, I'm willing to spend $2,000 on a PC for Road Core. Obviously, they're not just for Road Core. If that was literally the only game I could play on it, I would question my sanity. But it's a big enough motivator. I think we both agree on that.
Somehow, and I guess that's a very like basic conceptual thing I want to see from this broadcast. Is basically just that for that to be reinforced almost.
Yeah.
And whatever that entails. Like, and I think for me, that entails. I think they need to show it in motion, even if it's a very early stage. Like them playing like a test build, I think would go a long way. Like even if it comes down to that, it might not even look great, right? But then you can at least show lots of concept art to offset it, right? But I think seeing Rocore in motion is would be a really good move, basically. I think it would do a lot for people. I think the sentiment in the community is pretty like stable at the moment. Which does kind of also equate to, you could take the B out of that word and get stale. Like that kind of lines up, right? But it's definitely not agitated either. But I do think they have the potential to actually generate some. I think what's missing is excitement at the moment, and I think screenshots might not do it entirely. If you know what I mean. I think motion does a lot for people. And by the way, I think also it should be like a live gameplay of them actually playing the test build. So if it goes wrong, that's fine. If there's like bugs and shit, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because they'll still say it's like months off, things are going to change. But if they can show us like them going through the first level, which in our imagination situation we came up with earlier, is them like going through like soul pits, and then fighting like the first boss being the queen or whatever. If they can show us that, can you fucking imagine how hype it's going to be?
It would function as like an extended trailer almost as well.
Yeah.
Like they could publish that segment on its own and be like, look at this sort of like the first level. And by the way, we kind of based on what we know, it would not be how it would look in the final version, and that's fine. You can just make that very clear, right? And people will understand.
Yeah.
But I do think seeing it in motion, seeing something like what you just said, like the first stage of a run, would be a really cool way to go about things. You know, because frankly, and that's because I think by the next one, the next on the horizon, it's almost too close in a way to be like.
The next on the horizon, the alpha should be out or is going to be out for that. That's what that is.
Exactly. The next on the horizon should be more about like Rocore's post-launch almost and things like that. So they kind of need to get in there now and show literally everything that they can. And sometimes that might even cross the border of like stuff they probably shouldn't even show. I think this is an opportunity they need to take.
I was thinking about the anniversary stream isn't on the horizon.
Well, there will be an anniversary stream, but obviously that's not inherently.
Yeah, but the anniversary should be like, Rocore early access is out now or has already been out for a little bit and they're talking about it. Like that's what that kind of time is. And then the next one is literally it being out. So
yeah. I mean, stuff that we know we're not gonna see is like they're not gonna look at like the Reclaimer dwarfs like customization, right? That I don't think we're gonna see stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think
they've
probably not been focusing on that part of the game.
It would be awesome, but we're probably not even gonna see like the ramrod either. Probably gonna see concept art of it, I hope. That would be really nice, but we're probably not gonna see like a walkthrough of the ramrod's interior is unlikely because I think they're a bit more focused on the runs than that at the moment.
We might. No, because I feel like you can't really. Can you build like they? I don't know if it works like that. Like, I feel like at least there would be a ramrod in the version they're playing, but they might not show it.
I don't know. I don't know if that's.
Right?
I don't know if that's needed or not. You might be right.
I assumed that like you would need, like you can't just go back and add a physical menu like that. Like interactable menu that is the ramrod / hub. I assume that was like needed there to begin with.
I'm not sure that's entirely right, but it would also, if possible, it would obviously bolster it by quite a lot. But then again, if they did that, it would be like a very early. It would not be finished. It would basically be you walking out of wherever you start when you open the game straight to the drop pod. I mean, we don't know how much it's going to be a drop pod. It might be something else. It's definitely going to look different.
Exactly.
Um,
But
but
it could be, I don't know. Like, I just really hope they don't get too wrapped up about the things that, like, the thing is, I don't blame them for them not getting too wrapped up about it, because it's not on them, right? It's like they show like that whole thing, like the ramrod, them loading into the mission, them doing the first stage, and then like losing maybe by the end. I think is probably the best way they would go about doing it. Is so that, like, it doesn't continue basically. But like, if they do that and they're like, all of this is subject to change, most of it definitely will change, please do not overanalyze it. They're gonna like sit there half an hour later, we're gonna be there completely having overanalyzed literally everything they did. Like, and like, so is gonna be the rest of the community.
oh yeah,
Like,
like it doesn't even matter what they show. Like, I mean, obviously, even if it's just screenshots, you're going to get something. I mean, that might be caused because obviously it was actually a pretty good video we did. I think when we did a video, because obviously this kind of thing could easily boil down to me doing like a news video, but we did one after the not only did we do a podcast obviously for actual thoughts in it, but after the season 5 stuff on the last broadcast, we did a video that just went through all of the basically material that they showed, like just in detail together. And it basically, we actually ranked each like feature, but the point is, we could probably end up doing something similar. Just looking through stuff in detail could even have it could potentially be covered by the stream itself. We might just end up doing that on the stream. I don't know, but it's definitely going to be significant, and it's very clear that no matter what happens, they're gonna show, even if it's no gameplay like in motion, they're gonna show Roker in some capacity, and that alone is gonna spark a good deal, I think, in everyone. So, especially us. So
yeah. And I mean, I think, just in case, it's like, if they have nothing to show, that is not okay. I think as well is worth mentioning. That would be profoundly concerning if they have nothing to show of Rokup.
well,
Although it sounds like that's
it,
impossible since
it's
they've
it's an
specifically stated.
impossibility. So what that would boil down to, if that was somehow the case, that would actually boil down to its own problem, which is a lack of confidence that it shouldn't really be a thing. We know that they do have stuff to show. They've definitely got a lot of concept art. I'll tell you that much.
It
And
made
they
like a
and they,
mission
they not only do they have
a
concept
year.
art, we know based on the fact that they've done internal playtests, and even the fact that obviously a bunch of the other content creators played a very early build. We know they have working builds, and we know they have tons of concept art. So really, if they have very little or next to nothing to show, that is purely a confidence problem. But that in itself would be a problem as well. That I wouldn't want to
Yeah,
see.
but I think that is beyond the worst case scenario. That I think really low tier screenshots. High tier is probably like snippets of gameplay, maybe like someone using the, like, I don't know, perk system or whatever they're called in the game, and
Yeah,
then
someone
like
like
someone
they have like upgrade drones. I think they
like,
follow you, or you just find them at the end of each stage. Someone interact with an upgrade drone or something. I think we're definitely going to see some interface stuff as well, like a little bit, like
yeah,
because I remember the
maybe someone
first.
like making their dwarf, right, and what that entails with the system they've got going on there.
Oh yeah,
That
like
is something
yeah,
you're
not
looking
so not not cosmetic customization, but you mean like
at.
choosing your loadout
Ability,
essentially. Yeah.
yeah, and then
Well,
like your weapon
I
ability,
think what
I
we
think.
could be looking at is because I remember not the last time, the one before, the original, so a year from, actually, it was over a year ago now, because obviously, the Roku announcement, that broadcast was in October, it's obviously our current month, and they showed some screenshots from like their prototypes. I think it was, although I think those screenshots were actually mock-ups and they weren't from something that they were playing. I'm not sure, but I would be really cool if they could somehow essentially do a revamp of those screenshots, possibly in
Yeah, that
gameplay
would be,
form. Not necessarily, but at the very least, like, do you remember the one that is actually like a screenshot of the upgrade menu? Um,
yeah, yeah.
like that. What I want to see like that, but like at its like current stage, basically. Even if it's not
Basically, if they
100%
take
done.
like the context of every screenshot and what it actually looks like now, like, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Because I mean, the screenshots back then, that they still looked like fairly complete. like there was no blatant issues. Like they even had a bit of in-game play stuff where like he had the reclaimer pistol and was just like in a nice looking cave.
Well,
And it's
that's what
like
I mean.
that
I think those might have been
then
mock-ups. Like
a
I think
year ago.
Well, no, but I think they were like mock-ups where it's like something that they would have made. I don't think those were playable scenarios.
Yeah.
I think it's like more so just basically like sets that they built in like their engine basically to take screenshots in, like almost. Like almost,
But
it's
then this
almost like
time around
3D concept art, you know.
it should be literally screenshots
Like
from the
it's
playable
like
game.
in-engine concept art. It's like basically what that
Yeah.
was, I think. But like an updated form of that. And for me personally, definitely the stuff they've been talking about recently, which is a little bit of an actual discussion and just showing off both concept art and like actual models that they've been making of the core spawn enemies. I think that's a really good route to go, is actually get into the core spawn a bit specifically and how much of a role they're going to play in the game, like compared to the glyphids and things like that. Um, like I basically show everything you've got, maybe except from like a boss, like a core spawn boss. Maybe keep that a little bit tucked away. I don't know, but
I think maybe just like the because we know the normal version, say that's the grunt. Show us the swarmer, show us the praetorian, and then show us like a Mactera, as in like whatever
equivalent.
an other single other factional enemy, just to
Oh
give
well,
us
I
a round
definitely want
picture
there
of
to be like a core spawn drone, right? Like essentially, pretty much the ones that we have in Deep Rock right now, but with wings, like pretty or gliders, like flying squirrels. maybe
maybe.
maybe that'd be better for them. I don't know.
I'm thinking they like if they're still, it's like they kind of there's a light ditching of the insect theme, right?
Definitely,
With core
yeah.
with core spawn, and as much as I think that's fine, I think they kind of like the insects that they chose to do in Deep Rock are the more pleasant ones, right? I know people say that like the glyphids are spiders and so forth, which I don't quite agree with. I feel that they're a lot more ant,
Well, they
right?
are. I think they've even like said they're kind of just a mixture between them. Really, they're kind of just a mix
Yeah,
between ants and
I get a
spiders.
lot more ant coming out of them.
Yeah,
You got
more
like
ants, definitely more so.
flies, like bot flies, like they're pretty grim flies, but like not too bad. And you got like the millipedes, right? The ones that turn into little balls. Like the bugs have never been too grim of bugs, but there are some proper evil little fucking
Well, I
devils.
think
Like can
millipedes.
you
I
imagine
don't think they've gone all
creatures?
the way with millipedes though. I would say the shellbacks are more like lice, wood lice
Yeah, I
almost.
think that's what I meant. I think they're both called miller. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Millipedes is something else.
millipedes are the
Um,
ones with loads of legs, loads. Centipedes are the ones with like quite pronounced. I think centipedes are actually more freaky looking ones. To be honest.
Yeah, yeah, I think maybe more something like that. But the point is that like, can you
Also,
imagine
just worms.
an enemy?
Worms, giant worms. Sorry.
Yeah, can you imagine an enemy like based on like a praying mantis, right? Like creatures like
No, I can't.
insects are more like devious, really. Like, and maybe something that is a lot more explicitly spider, which is all I think is the main difference. Is like the legs need to shoot out more, right? Like if Glyphid's legs went out more, I would get the spider thing more. Like the way their kind of stance is lower and like more spread out is I think
Yeah.
spiders more, and like the difference between spiders and ants. There's lots of other technical things, but I mean like gutturally, like as someone who's afraid of spiders, why I don't give a shit about them,
But
but do
the
spiders.
thing is though, if you take glyphids and just make them do that, what is that other than just a spider though? You know.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying to do that to Glyphids, but I'm saying like if you wanted an enemy in the Orocore to give off spider energy more than Glyphids do, I think just make them wider and lower, and then you're getting there. Same amount of legs, obviously, but yeah, or more legs would probably work pretty well. Um,
More
I don't know.
legs.
There are more malicious insects. Like the insects they used were pretty tame, but I think there are some. Sick little bastards.
Camel spiders.
Yeah, or like those like cave spiders. I think that might actually be their name. But they're like part spider, part scorpion. And they got this huge like um
Is
I don't
this
know,
the
like
one that just grabbed shit? It's just...
I think so, yeah. Like with the yeah, like something like that. Like which actually that's probably the best thing. Any deep insect in real life, it would probably translate pretty well, and by pretty well I mean
Yeah,
horrifying.
like the ones we've got in
Pro-
Deep Rock aren't like necessarily that kind of insect, are they? They're a bit more traditional, but even though they are
Yeah,
like deep subterranean creatures,
yeah.
but that's why in Roadcore we're going even more subterranean. So basically, what are the pests that the core spawn have to deal with themselves? Basically, what are the core spawn's equivalent of a house spider?
Also, I really, really, I think this is. I was gonna say like generally, but I think specifically there should be like a biome which is like the bottom of the ocean, right? Like where the creatures are neon in some way, shape, or form, and it is really fucking dark and like anglerfish type enemies, stuff like that. I think that would be a pretty sweet idea because obviously the implications of a ocean exists, right? That's what the salt pits was, right? The Azure world is an ocean type biome, like
Yeah,
gives off that
I
feeling.
think both Salt Pits and Dense Biozone are remnants. Azure World isn't. Azure World's pretty like original recipe,
No,
but
but like
in
it feels
concept,
like
yeah.
an ocean biome. But I'm thinking more like Azure world, but like feels like ocean, Mariana Trench type of anomalous horrors that reside in the
Honestly,
depths.
with some just like clever sort of just clever development skill, you could get a biome that is like potentially way darker than Azure World, but still readable if you really play up the neon aspects. And basically have so the terrain is really only visible through like neon lines. Like the plain terrain, like just the soil is actually invisible most of the time. You could get, as long as you're clever about it, you could get really dark. And I think that's definitely something I'd like to
I think that
see.
would be because I don't know how exactly they're going to work, but if it is like node generation, if you kind of know what I mean, like you play Wonderlands, right? We play it together. Like they're kind of like you have singular rooms. That's kind of the way it works. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they're going for. But with that, you have like rooms that are under like special conditions, right? Like special anomalous things. Like I guess in Hades, you can think of when like the Theseus guy or the Death guy comes in, and that's like a special encounter room. They could do something like that where the room and the cave is just pitch black, and like it, you can only really get around by like throwing out like flares, and they're barely bright. Like they really like dim down, but there are creatures that lurk in the darkness, and like you can hear them scuttle away when you throw a flare and stuff like that. Like something that like for an entire floor or an entire like level or anything would be pretty domineering, but for a single cave, a single room that's just nightmarish would be sick. I think something like that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I
I
hope
think
that
I'm just
whatever they're doing gives them the means to do stuff like that, because obviously the idea that it's going to take a bit more of a darker tone is important. But I do think about is it possible to like sort of even like amplify that in individual cases, just beyond the fact that it's darker overall. Does the way they're constructing Roadcore mean that they could do something like what you just said? And I bloody well hope so, because I mean that would be a very anomalous thing. I would assume that's not something that would happen every run. I mean that's the thing, we don't really know. We don't even know, because I think the original concept was like 5-stage run. That could even change, and I think that's definitely in the cards of stuff that I want to at least hear. I think a general like sort of premise of what Rogue Core is to be like reiterated would be a fair thing to ask as well, to be honest. And that's
yeah.
quite generalist, but I think it
I'm
makes
looking
sense, right?
forward. Well, actually, I'm going to say I'm looking forward to the Q&A on this stream.
Yeah.
But I'm really concerned that people are going to fucking waste it on questions that are like basically just about Deep Rock, right? Like people are going to be like, "Oh, when are you going back to Deep Rock? When season 6?" And it's like questions we know the answer to, and that they're just going to answer like we're not thinking about it, we're getting round to it, stuff like that.
Yeah. Should we talk about that a little bit, right? And I mean a little bit because that's what it's going to come down to. If if Deep Proc would even be mentioned in the stream. Now, on a very technical level, yes, but not in the sense of upcoming stuff at all. Um, obviously the word the phrase Deep Rock Galactic will probably be mentioned aside from Rogue Core at least once. I'm sure, but season season 6 will not be mentioned at all. Guarantee.
Not by them
Not by
voluntarily.
them.
I
Not by
doubt.
them. Like, and I don't think you're going to see a.
Or
Okay.
they might re-show the roadmap, so they probably might bring it up then.
Well,
But like,
so the
there is
idea of
nothing to
a
announce.
yeah, it's
Like that.
nothing, and that's just like a surprise maintenance update. Unlikely, extremely unlikely. I will never say 100%, but extremely unlikely because I think if they still do patches from time to time, that's not the kind of thing they're going to talk about. If there's like a small surprise update, maybe, but that's not going to happen either. But if there would be a roadmap update in and of itself for Ghost Ship, there is a big reason why I think that's fair to do, and that's because if they were to have a roadmap included in that stream, the only difference between that and the previous one would be the inclusion of actual dates, as opposed to what the previous roadmap shows. The previous one, all it shows is Q1 for the closed alpha. This is as far as Rogue Core goes on the previous roadmap. There's a lot of other stuff on it, obviously, but the Rogue Core stuff is Q1 2025 for the closed alpha, and then Rogue Core early access release itself is it's just there. It's just after the closed alpha, but in 2025. That's all that it has, and I think they should be able to give some more specificity to that, right? I think that would be valuable. I think they're at least at the stage where they can be like, maybe a month for the closed alpha and then a quarter for the actual game. Maybe. I mean, not a actual release date, but I think a more specific release window is also a reasonable ask. I'd imagine.
Yeah. I mean, we can only hope. They don't give dates until they know dates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no actual
So
release date, but release window, I think is needed. But and that will probably be that's probably rubbing up against everything that would be in it though, in that stream.
we can possibly conceive of.
Yeah, but
Sometimes they like to completely ball from nowhere, just catch everyone off guard. What the fuck? Like they did when they announced Roll Call.
oh, okay. That honestly, that reminded me of actually a relatively not like yeah, a fairly big concept actually, but more of a spiritual concept in terms of like the vibes I want to get. I want this on the Horizon broadcast to be their opportunity to do one of these broadcasts and have there be no bad news. You know? Do you know what I mean? Like it
I don't
doesn't. It's
think there's that thing here.
hmm?
I think I don't think that's real. I mean, even if they do try that, they're gonna somehow end up giving bad news, like in the Q&A or something at the end. Like I don't know what the bad news will be, but there's just no way they don't do it. Like, like
but
have,
it's almost the one thing I want is for it to be there to be no caveat, you know, because we know it's not going to be the most fruitful thing anyway, because it's just about a game that we already know is happening. It's not going to be announcing some wild new update. It might show some cool stuff, but it's not going to be the most insane thing anyway. So I think it won't be pleasant if there's some actual bad news. I know what you mean. If there's a good chance there'll be something, but as long as it's passable, you know, I probably won't be too bothered. As long as it's not something that they have to announce, like what you just said. If it were to come from the Q&A, then it can't be that bad. I mean, I don't even know what that kind of what that bad news would be, necessarily.
I don't know. Will Roll Call be co-op? Like, no.
What do you mean?
Those bastards.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's time to potentially hear from other people about what they might want to see from this broadcast. We've got a couple little rodents of our audience who put in their 2 cents.
Nice.
It's not very nice, is it? I'm sorry, about this, and so we're going to split this because we also had like a little fun segment that we'll do at the end, the trivia segment. So I'm going to split these up a little bit. But first of all, from Mr. Cheese 8097, I'd like to see a gameplay clip. As far as I'm aware, we still have no idea what a game of roll call would actually look like, and I think knowing what the game is going to be would help with the public interest. That is, yeah, that's just backing up pretty much what I said, which is completely fair. A gameplay clip, I think that's definitely I think that's kind of what people need a little bit.
We need to see it that it's real.
Yes,
That's real. Like, we need like that it's something that we could actually hold in our hands because we've only heard about it. We know people are playing it and can play it. We know the devs are playing it. We know SNIS and all that played it. We know it's playable, but we literally cannot picture it because we've never seen anyone even do
yeah.
it.
I
Right?
think this
We know like screenshots that aren't even real.
yeah.
Like from back
I
a
think
year ago.
to sort of just shift the community out of, I guess, sort of just kind of out of boredom. I think there's there's an unreality to Rocore that it still has at the moment that kind of needs to be dispelled by the stream. You know, as much as possible, they kind of need to make Rocore into a real thing in people's heads. You know, it's like,
Especially since at this point in time, roll call is the only thing people are looking forward to.
yeah.
Because
So
everyone knows, well, not everyone, but generally, people know that season 6 isn't coming until roll call. So that is literally, it's like whether or not you're looking forward to roll call, you still want roll call to occur so then they can get work on season 6.
exactly.
So like,
So gameplay clip or
Roll call-
not, you need to put something in people's heads. You need to put
yeah, like right now it is just a name and a little trailer is what people are waiting for, which is just not feasible. Expect people to be okay with that. We are because we're basically apathetic at this point. But I want to be excited. I would like to be excited for the thing that you're working on, as I am sure that they are because they get to play it.
Yeah, it's like
but
when we were
nobody
actually
else does.
sort of riffing about like stuff we'd like to see early, even before we started talking about the stream. That's almost fake excitement, if you know what I mean. It's not actually, but it's not. It's also not excitement that's technically real yet either, if you know what I mean. Like it's not. It's not. It's not. It's not reinforced excitement yet. It's kind of just wandering in like the dark excitement, you know. And it will mutually be resuscitated and amplified when it has some kind of backing. And I think pretty much anything gameplay clip would be great, but pretty much anything will do that. Anyway,
gameplay clip will definitely get the feeling across. If we see the stuff, screenshots, it will help. I think if we can see gameplay, I mean that's it, baby. That'll sate people until.
I mean that's definitely a takeaway here, right? I think gameplay motion of any form would be a big win. So hopefully someone's watching from Ghost Ship and they can keep that in mind because they think that is the way to go. Anyway, from Certified Rogue Butler, honestly, I just want to see how much rogue core varies from DRG. Since the roguelike, I'd like to see how we get weapons or perks. I'd also like to see other new ideas, such as how a run is finished. Do we just beat a final area and we win? Or will we have to extract ourselves and get closer to the surface to escape? So I think that would lean into what I was mentioning earlier about they kind of just need to do a little bit of a reiteration of what rogue core is, even if it's just in word form, you know? Just explain the game a bit again and where, like, especially what it is now, like in regards to how much it's changed from the original premise.
They probably didn't know the answer to these questions before, but they should do now, ideally, right? How you get out of a mission, if you do. Like, when you beat, like, a stage boss, do you get the option to extract or push further? Or is it, classic...
honestly, that's, like, a cool idea. Or classic roguelike.
Forced to go back down? Or do the Reclaimers really have enough executive decisions to say that we want to leave?
I think they do. Yeah. If it's their ship, therefore it's their drop pod. I think they can just be like, can we extract now? And maybe a manual extraction is more difficult, potentially, but...
Yeah, maybe then it's like, you've got like 3 minutes to survive and it's an endless wave, so you've got to make the call at the right time. Like, if you know you're going to lose the mission, and if losing the mission makes you lose more than if you extract, like, making the call. I feel like having more executive choice on stuff like that would be pretty cool.
I mean, that would be a cool thing to. That'd be a cool spin for roguelikes in general, though. Like a manual out. You know, generally you just go until you die or until you win, right? But
like loses, like yeah, it's just like a minor victory compared to a proper one.
yeah, that would actually be pretty cool.
We'll have to see. Hopefully, ideally.
Mm. That's the kind of thing I think would be more likely to just hear about them talking. But I definitely want that, like sort of in the Q&A segment, but kind of before they start actually answering questions, for Mikkel and Mike or whoever to just start, basically just talk about what we just saw or something like that, and then be like, and then it will just sort of spin off into a bit of a reiteration about what Roker actually is and what it is now as well. In contrast, what are you doing?
What? Really?
It's like a. Oh my god! All right. Yeah, we're back after a hilarious malfunction.
It was not hilarious. Now my mic has broken along with my camera.
Yeah, it's fine. We're basically done anyway. Although we got a little fun segment to do at the end. But apart from that, any final thoughts? I mean, so I think the next episode, depending on when we, because I know that we will like probably have a schedule or something, or an agenda, or at least like an announcement of the stream itself before the next episode. But depending on how things go, I might force it so that the next episode of the podcast is post the broadcast, which could create a weird gap between podcast episodes. But it might make more sense than not, though, depending on when it happens. So we might have to do that. But I think that just about does it though for all that stuff. So now,
all right,
we get to talk about the best dwarf in fiction.
I like, yeah. Well, I like, yeah. I put my own idea.
Okay, now you do sound like shit. I don't know what you just. Whatever. Sorry. Go on.
Didn't do anything. I put my own idea as to what the podcast could be, and it got made into a funny little segment at the end.
Well, yeah. Did you know that I took that like seriously in the way that I did?
Well, I knew that when people that were responding to your post, which once again, it's way more difficult than it should be to be able to find your post. But I can see the responses and how everyone just kept saying Gimli.
Yeah,
it's their favorite.
Yeah,
dwarf.
So best dwarf in fiction. Both Certified Red Butler and Mr. Cheese said Dwimley. Dwimley. Why the fuck did I just say Dwimley?
I have no idea.
Not the most interesting pick. Whenever I think of dwarves, Gimli comes to mind. Second place would probably be the Deep Rock dwarves. There's really no other candidate that's better than Gimli from Lord of the Rings. It's always funny to see him bicker with elves. Well, yeah, Gimli is definitely a popular choice.
I mean, because like obviously, I kind of, it was partly a joke. I won't lie to you, but like I did think about it. It's like, there is very little other like as famous dwarfs, right? Like, probably only like the Disney ones, Sleepy.
Oh god, and they're arguably.
Doc.
I'd call them gnomes. I would.
Yeah, they're very. I mean, they're more like classic ancient dwarves. But yeah, no. But then there's like, as far as like movies, there's not many movies with dwarves in. Right?
No, I mean, well, there is the Hobbit trilogy,
the Hobbit.
which is just like so many dwarves, right? To be fair,
Yeah,
and some of them are pretty great. I mean, I would genuinely put Dwalin in the running.
Is my child, my sweet little Bomber, the barrel rider.
Well,
that was.
He goes beyond barrel rider. He's barrel wearer.
Barrel batterer.
I mean, it is interesting because, like, especially as a result of that kind of stuff, but also especially Deep Rock and that kind of thing, sort of creating a more prominent pop culture perception of dwarves, there aren't many individuals really, like individual dwarf characters aside from Gimli.
Yeah,
And the dwarves from Deep Rock are kind of like an amalgam, they're like an amalgam almost of
they are
concepts.
dwarf.
They kind of
They
are.
are.
But that's because it's a bit more of a mindset than anything else.
Yeah.
Is the popular side of it. So Gimli is kind of just left to be still the poster child of sorts, I'd say, because it's not Carl, and obviously we don't even know what he looks like or is, so it can't be Carl.
And then it's like other games, like because I just by handy coincidence. I mean, I think there's a dwarf meme page that has been on my feed on Instagram for a while, and they had one where it was like just a bunch of like famous dwarves. Basically, I don't remember the meme or the context, but there was like the one from Dragon Age, which I don't think you'd even.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple from Dragon Age, isn't there? Obviously.
He's not in the first game, but he's in the second and third one, and he seems to be fairly popular.
Well, there is one in the first game, the actual dwarf companion. He's pretty cool. Or I can't remember his name.
But he's definitely. He's like, you meet him like, I guess you say late on, it completely depends on the order you do things. But no, he's just a fairly standard dwarf. But this guy, he's like a smooth talking kind of, like, bard, essentially, or ranger. Like, I don't know, he's like your standard bard character in fiction, but a dwarf, is kind of what I would describe him as.
Yeah, and dwarves, I think there's still an agenda against them, personally. You know? Look at Baldur's Gate. Look at Elder Scrolls. Look at just first of all, Elder Scrolls in general. What that's done with dwarves.
Yeah.
Two big things, you know. First of all, they're extinct.
They're
Second of all,
elves.
they're elves.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. Baldur's Gate, though, as much as I love Baldur's Gate 3, it's a great game, but like, there's no real prominent dwarf characters, like really, and there certainly aren't any party characters either that are dwarves, and yet you have like multiple elves. Both Astarion and Shadowheart are elves, technically. It's like, wait a minute. There's too many elves. And there's no like, dwarf character.
There's three. Minthara's a dark elf.
Oh, fucking hell.
Shadowheart.
I think
Halfson might be an elf.
He might be. I mean, he's too swole to be an elf, but he must be.
I think Jaheira is an elf as well.
What the fuck?
So you got like 5, maybe 4, definitely. Although Shadowheart is half elf, but still, yeah. And then the rest are only ever going to be humans, right? And you're lucky you even got a fucking Tiefin and Karlach, really.
Lucky, yeah.
Lae'zel is.
They're ugly though. Like, sorry, I don't care for Githyanki.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And yes, that is xenophobia.
Well, I think the women ones are still. They made a notable attempt to make them more attractive than the male versions, which they let the rot consume. They're like, these things are going to be fucking grotesque, but they tried a little bit with the women.
Yeah, but it doesn't work. I mean, I can see the difference. No. You know, I will give them the thing that the male Githyanki are far less appealing, or they're much more unappealing. But I hate Lae'zel. And a lot of it is due to the way she looks. And that is racism. I guess we have to see what Dragon Age is going to do, if anything. Velgard.
I think that Bella mention's coming back. Chances are the Enchantment Kid's coming back, which was on the meme. I think he is on the list.
How do we know that Morrigan's in it?
He's the bald elf.
I said Morrigan.
Oh, the goth woman.
Well, she's kind of like... Yeah.
Not surprised. Well, I am surprised because they kind of ditched her. Well, I mean, they didn't really bring. They only brought back the French woman in the third game.
Yeah.
Which,
I like that. I mean, in my opinion, right, it's a very clear. I feel like this is actually this might not be the popular opinion. I know this is a popular opinion for Mass Effect. The popular opinion is that like Liara is like the canon romance option, but she's also by virtue of that probably the least popular. I'd imagine actually Ashley's probably the least popular, but then it's like Liara is like she's like almost canon in a way. It's clearly what the developers want, so most options
like
are more appealing.
Shepherd,
but
they're like always have like charisma or like it's always an option.
Yeah, But I do think the consensus is actually, I think probably, I'd imagine the most picked is actually probably Tally. And
The only reason
thing
it
is,
wouldn't be is because of the first king.
I don't think this probably isn't actually reflected by the numbers or general consensus, but I see the exact same thing in Dragon Age Origins specifically. I could entirely see Morrigan as Liara and
literally,
Leliana as
yeah,
Tali, like completely.
like-
I see Morrigan is so clearly the canon, like the
I
dev
fucking
pick, you know.
hate Morrigan like a lot. Like she's just a bitch. Like, I was helping people, and she's like, "Ugh, ugh, ugh, ugh." I'm like, "Fuck you, fuck off." And as soon as I could, I got rid of her. But then at like the very end, she's like, "I want to have your child so you survive." I'm like, literally, I've not
I told
talked
her
to
to
you. I
fuck
dislike
off.
you actively.
I
told her to fuck off.
I accidentally romanced her, which is what I was really happy to find out. I looked it up and it was like, you actually can't romance two characters. And I was like, I think I basically just defied that so densely that I managed to get away with it anyway. And romance Leliana. But I think it's because I didn't actually go all the way with Morrigan. Well, that has nothing to do with dwarves. I will say though, I think that the dwarf city segment might have been my favourite from Dragon Age Origins. To be
It
honest.
helped because you also were a dwarf, right?
No.
Or no, you.
I was an elf.
No, you were saying. Oh, right. Well, you fucking pointy-eared leaf lover. I was a dwarf, and it was why did it last? Because it was really cool. Because you basically like I was a royal dwarf, and I ended up being like a part of the main conflict of that thing. Like, because it's like a power, like it's like the whole problem in the dwarven area is like the king died, and there's like a fight for the throne, and as a dwarf, like the royal dwarven, you were like basically the son accused of killing him falsely by your brother, and so it gives a completely new layer to that whole thing, which ultimately results in the bad ending for those guys, because the brother is actually the better king than the other guy you bring in, but because he fucking killed your dad and other brother and framed you for it, you're not happy with him. Point is, I fucking love that game so much. It did dwarves so well. That's like the main thing.
Yeah, I think Dragon Age Origins actually deserves some credit. I think as far as video games go, its treatment of dwarves as just one element of the fantasy world was very well done. They were not shunned or treated worse than anything else. Yeah, they are actually.
They're the more nomadic kind of forest elves than whatever the fuck Lord of the Rings ones are, where they're like basically
Lord of the Rings
gods.
have like both though. No, because in the Hobbit, like the wood elves are very much so wood elves.
I guess.
But then there are the other elves. I think elves in Lord of the Rings are actually cool, and I think people do get that. Like Tolkien literally saw them as like superhumans, and then I guess Tolkien probably didn't like dwarves as much. He definitely kind of tends to have them be on the other end of the stick.
I think because I literally watched a video this morning as I was doing the washing up about a video of a dude who basically said I kind of hate elves. I think it's literally the exact title. And he makes the point that generally speaking, people hate elves all of a sudden, right? Like a lot of people are kind of like, "Oh, fuck elves," and he makes the point that they represent the 1%. They're perfect, ageless, and they really don't get involved.
I think it's just because people like saying "pointy-eared leaf lover." I think that's.
Yeah. I think he didn't acknowledge the success of Deep Rock Galactic in the equation. I think that is.
I think it played a big role, like genuinely.
But
in a more trivial sense, of course.
Mentioned like when he was younger, he obviously loved Legolas because Legolas basically did like immaculate stunts of strength and grace and skill just with complete ease. But then he mentions that as he got older, he realized that like Gimli is so fucking done dirty in like every single situation. Like the world is not made for him. He's too short, stubby, struggling all the time, yet doing just as well as Legolas. Like he's keeping up. Like makes him like a fucking hero. And I think that's an angle you can look at dwarves in the Lord of the Rings universe. That at every single turn they get fucked over by everything, right? They are like so done dirty. They're like constantly digging up ancient horrors and dragons flying into their fucking houses and like all that other shit. And yet they're still somehow kicking around and like existing in the world, right? And I think that's why people fucking love dwarves. I think it's just a rough, gruff bunch of lads that will just endure, basically.
I literally just going to use the word endurance. They just represent endurance, just lasting
Yeah.
against, I guess just dealing with shit. And there's something
Yeah,
I guess
it's like,
I guess there's something sort of
my
petty and sort of frail that's seen in elves that people don't want to relate to. Or people want to they don't like those characteristics. They want to be like the dwarves who kind of just outlast everything, and just despite the fact that they are clearly not built for what they're doing, they just make do anyway. I wish Deep Rock kind of isn't, because frankly, even though maybe it sometimes feels like they're against the grain, the entire conceit of Deep Rock is that they hired the dwarves because they're actually suited to this. They're literally being sent underground to mine and fight for a living. They're actually very happy with what they're doing.
Yeah, but I think that goes both ways. It is either or, like either both of these things are the case, or only really one is. But like the dwarves are either literally made for the caves, like they thrive with mining and fighting and drilling and grilling and all that other stuff, right? That's literally what they're built for, so they're perfect. Or the dwarves are the only species in the universe stupid enough to fall for the propaganda that they should be in that fucking cave system, right? I think that is equally possible, that they are just manipulatable enough and are willing to buy the propaganda enough to put themselves in the fucking pure death situation that is Hoxie's.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's actually also there's a lot of stupidity as well. But that's why I think we're gonna like the Reclaimers a bit more, though, because I think it's gonna be like the difference between mercs and conscripts, basically. I think the DRG dwarves are basically the way I imagine it, my headcanon is that basically the dwarven king on their homeworld basically sold his species. It's just we'll just keep giving this company dwarves. Everyone is basically conscripted into the dwarven army, but the dwarven army is actually just Deep Rock's employee base. And then but the Reclaimers are independent dwarven mercenaries. Apparently we will still be guided by mission control, apparently. Which is actually
Reclaimers,
makes sense.
That's not it though, is it? I thought Reclaimers were the best of the best within their within their troops. Like the dwarves that perform the best got recruited into being a Reclaimer, with the task of reclaiming Hoxies.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure. I thought that was
actually, you know what? I think you might. I think they might be. I'm actually not sure. Maybe we'll find out soon.
Generally speaking, but generally speaking, within Deep Rock Galactic, headcanon is basically 90% of the canon, really.
Yeah.
Right. You can run with whatever thought you want. All the dwarves are clones, completely believable. That is entirely feels like. Even though I think they came out and said it's wrong, fuck them. They don't give a shit about their own lore. They barely write it. So if you think they're clones,
no,
they might as well be clones.
If you don't have a lore what would you call it? There's a thing that people have, like a lore Bible. If you don't have a lore Bible, then don't pretend like you do.
Yeah, don't shut down headcanons when you're not going to replace it with anything substantial.
I think they do welcome headcanons. I think they do. I don't think they shut down ideas.
But I think they have actively shot down the clone theory.
Maybe. I haven't seen that myself.
Which
speaking of lore Bibles, there's some. We haven't talked about the Pokemon stuff, but are you aware of this?
I've only seen a tiny bit of it, but I saw the octopus one, which I think is what everyone's really referring to, right?
No, everyone's talking about Typhlosion.
I don't know what that one is.
Typhlosion's a Gen 2 starter. It's like the second fire starter. He's just an ambiguous mammal. Starts as Quilava or whatever. Cyndaquil. Little Cyndaquil.
Yeah.
That final form of that was the main one. Apparently he's a pedophile. Anyway, that's on that bombshell.
Well, no, because I saw apparently I think that's slacking R-worded someone I saw.
Yeah, but it's it's difficult
then, there was
abbreviate.
There was a dude who found the octopus Pokemon just on the sea side.
Look, we need to go. This is getting even further away from it.
And then he
even
did
for-
it like a couple more times.
Anyway,
and
if
then
you
he
enjoyed
had,
this
like,
episode of Bad Vision Podcast,
in a
please make sure to
dream,
like and subscribe. If
like
you
the
want to
octopus
see
said, "I had a child,
more of
and it's
them,
yours."
and you want to stand to
And then
anything
he
to do
went
with Deep
to the
Broken Road
beach,
Call,
and there was a
then please make
baby,
sure to click
and
the
then he
bell as
raised
well.
the child, and then he died, and apparently the child was sad and alone.
As always, thank you to our
That's what I
member,
read.
Boxfoot Scoot.
Yeah.
And that'll be all. We'll see you.
Basically, I don't really know what people expected from a game called Game Freak.
That's been a bit. That has definitely been brought up. Anyway, you can see me next Tuesday. And then you can see us on Friday, Halloween time, and then whatever's going on after that. Anyway, yep. See you soon. Hopefully this broadcast will make some waves, and I'm sure it will. Bye. Say goodbye, Tyler.
Bye, Harry.